Kramatorsk, Donetsk Oblast. March 2024. The wind carried dust through the skeleton of the city. Apartment buildings stood like punched-out teeth, broken windows, blackout curtains fluttering like torn flags. Somewhere, a dog barked and was immediately silenced by the distant thud of artillery. The war had pushed closer again. In an old, half-abandoned flat on the 6th floor, Ilya adjusted a rusted antenna made from coat hangers and copper wire. His fingers were stained with grease, bandaged from trial and error. His headphones hissed with static, but beneath the noise, something pulsed. A voice. Or maybe just hope pretending to be one. He leaned in. To those who still listen. 47.384 North. Help, names, buried, not gone. Static swallowed the rest. Ilya tore the headphones off, heart pounding. His grandmother Helena, sitting quietly by the cold stove knitting the same pair of socks for the third time this week, looked up. Again, she asked, her voice soft but unshaken. Ilya nodded. It's not just noise anymore, babushka. Someone's out there. Sending messages. Helena studied his face, sharp, pale from lack of sunlight, but with eyes that hadn't dulled like most others in this part of the city. She stood slowly and walked over, placing a thin, weathered hand on his shoulder. Then you better listen, Ilyasha. Sometimes, voices from the dark are the only light left. Flashback, 1 week earlier. They found the radio in the basement of the destroyed school near the train station, a heavy, Soviet-era shortwave with dials like tank wheels. Ilya had dragged it home on a bike frame, convinced he could make it work. While others scavenged for food, Ilya scavenged for pieces of the past. He needed to hear something. Not just the news broadcasts, cold voices reading casualty counts and logistics. He wanted proof that beyond the checkpoints and the gray lines on maps, someone was still alive. That resistance hadn't died with the last drone strike. Present day. That night, as the air sirens' moan and flashes lit up the distant edge of the city, Ilya sat again with the headphones on, notebook open. He scribbled. Signal detected. Coordinates? 47.384 N, incomplete. Message, help, names, buried but not gone. He played the recording again, this time through the small speaker. Helena was pouring tea over a single reused bag when she dropped the cup. Her hands trembled. I know that voice, she whispered. That's Mykola. Ilya turned to her. Who? Mykola Didenko. I taught him. He joined the 93rd Brigade. Disappeared near Yasenuvata months ago. She sat slowly. They said he was dead. Scene 2, The Risk. The next morning, Ilya met Katya, his childhood friend, now a volunteer paramedic. She'd seen more blood than most doctors twice her age and carried morphine in her coat like candy. He handed her the notebook. It's real. The signal's coming from somewhere near Yasenuvata. Katya frowned. That's behind enemy lines. Occupied since last summer. How could they be broadcasting from there? That's what I want to find out. But I need your help. She looked at him, at the dark circles under his eyes, the fire behind them. I'll get you batteries, she said. And don't tell me what they're for. Scene 3, Piecing the Ghosts. By day, Ilya avoided checkpoints. At night, he and Katya climbed to rooftops, mounting makeshift antennas like resistance banners. Each night, the signal grew stronger. The voice more coherent. Fragments stitched themselves together. They keep us underground, no light, no dates, just names. 27 of us. Mykola Didenko. Petro Lushko. Anna Veremchuk. I'm still here, they didn't break us. Ilya stared at the list. These were hostages. Alive. Helena sat beside him one night and quietly added a name of her own. Anna Veremchuk. That's her niece. She came to visit in 2022. They took her when the city fell. Katya's hands shook. They're not just names. These are real people. Real families. Scene 4, the clock starts ticking. 2 days later, the message changed. The tone sharpened. Nikola's voice cracked with urgency. They're moving us. 72 hours. Then they clean the chamber. Tell command. Tell anyone. Don't let us die here. That same night, a local volunteer told Katya about Serhiy, a drone pilot operating out of a forest base near Slavyansk. If they could triangulate the signal, he could act. But time was running out. Ilya worked through the night, soldering wires with a lighter, using metal scraps to fine-tune a directional receiver. On the third night, during a thunderstorm, they locked onto a narrow beam from a ridge near an abandoned rail line. It's a relay, Ilya said, soaked and shaking. They're bouncing the signal off an old repeater. They had the exact location. Now they just had to survive long enough to get it to Serhiy. Part 2, Shadows in the Ruins. March 27, 2024. 48 hours left. The sky over Kramatorsk was black with low-hanging smoke. Somewhere toward Chasiv Yar, heavy artillery was lighting up the night, a muffled, constant roar like a god beating on a steel drum. Katya adjusted her scarf and slipped into the ruined corridor of what had once been the post office. Now, it was Ilya's signal room. The walls were cracked, but the acoustics were perfect. The makeshift antenna was hooked through a broken window, and Ilya sat beside a gutted file cabinet, tuning the receiver like a surgeon. He looked up as Katya handed him a folded paper. Coordinates, she said. Direct line to Serhiy's forward drone unit. My guy vouched for him. You trust him? Ilya asked. No, she said flatly. But I trust you. He blinked, not used to hearing that. They exchanged a look, part fear, part awe at what they were doing. Teenagers with a rusted radio and a war secret. Same night. 42 hours left. As they prepared to send the triangulated coordinates to Serhiy, Helena returned from the courtyard with a strange look on her face. There's a van outside, she whispered. 2 men. They're not from around here. They're watching the building. Ilya froze. Katya pulled her coat tighter. We need to go. Now. But it was too late. Scene, ambush. A crash shattered the door. Boots. Shouted Russian. Flashlights in their eyes. Ilya grabbed the notebook, stuffed it under a loose floorboard. Katya spun toward the window but was blocked by a man in tactical gear, unmarked. Mercenaries. Not regular troops. A voice, slick and rehearsed, slid out of the darkness. You kids are very clever with wires. Very dangerous. Very loud. They were pushed against the wall, rough hands searching their jackets. Where's the transmitter? The man asked. Where's the boy's toy? Helena stood between them. For a moment, time stopped. You have no right, she said coldly. This is Ukraine. The man laughed. Cruel and sharp. Ukraine is a ghost, old woman. You are echoes. Nothing more. She didn't blink. Then you're afraid of ghosts, she said. In that second of hesitation, Katya moved. Her knee connected with the soldier's groin, hard. Ilya slammed a metal pipe into another's wrist. Chaos. Screams. Blood. They ran. Scene, escape through ruins. Through the alleyways, past husks of buildings and blown-out shops. Ilya clutched the notebook like it was sacred. Katya limped, her leg cut from broken glass. They didn't speak until they reached an abandoned trolley depot. There, hidden beneath rusted benches, was a long-range transmitter, one of Ilya's earlier projects. He powered it up with trembling hands. We're almost out of time, he whispered. They know we're listening. Scene, the message that saved lives. With her hands shaking, Katya typed the encrypted message to Serhiy's drone unit. Coordinates confirmed. Civilian prisoners underground near rail yard, Yasenuvata. Estimated 27. Movement expected in 36 hours. Seconds later, a reply came. Received. Mission initiated. Sit tight. Ilya leaned back and let the weight fall from his chest. Then came the second message. We'll give them light. Scene, waiting in silence. The next 24 hours were slow torture. No more signals came. Ilya listened to the static like it was a heartbeat. Helena boiled potatoes in silence. Katya barely slept, clutching her medical bag like a weapon. That night, a small drone buzzed past their building. Ilya ran to the roof and flashed a coded light, the signal Katya had arranged. 3 short. 2 long. 1 short. We're alive. The drone answered with a flash of its own. So are they. Scene, the operation. Through Katya's radio, they heard the encrypted chatter of Serhiy's unit the next morning. Low voices. Wind noise. The whine of drone rotors. Target confirmed. Underground chamber beneath collapsed factory. Sending microdrone now. Ilya closed his eyes. I hear voices, the pilot whispered. 20+ civilians. Some waving fabric. Then, gunfire. Yelling. Static. Katya gripped Ilya's arm. He couldn't breathe. Defenders down. Repeat, 2 defenders down. Returning fire. Minutes passed. Then, finally, clarity. Civilians secured. Repeat, all alive. Repeat, all alive. 1 injured. 1 in Mykola Didenko requesting to send message. There was a pause. And then it came. Garbled but real. To the boy who listened, you brought us back. Tell Helena. I still remember her lessons. Especially the one about never giving up. Part 3, After the Static. March 30th, 2024. Kramatorsk. Dawn. For the first time in weeks, the city slept. No sirens. No shelling. Just the wind moving softly through broken balconies, and the faint crackle of a dying fire in the distance. Ilya stood on the roof, wrapped in a thermal blanket, the transmitter still warm beside him. He had not slept. Katya sat nearby, her boots off, feet bloody and blistered. She was silent, staring out toward the east, where the horizon was turning pink. We did it, Ilya said, his voice hoarse. We did something, she replied. The war didn't end. No, he agreed. But they lived. 27 names. That's not nothing. A beat. Then Katya looked at him, really looked. You were supposed to be the quiet one, she said with a tired smile. The kid with wires and no voice. Ilya gave a half laugh. Turns out I had one. Just needed the right frequency. Scene, Mykola's voice. That afternoon, a military courier. A woman in digital camo with tired eyes arrived at Helena's apartment. She handed over a sealed envelope and a small audio chip. From Yasenuvada, she said. The one named Didenko insisted it reach you directly. Helena sat at the kitchen table, her hands shaking more than usual. She opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a short note. Still your student. Still listening. Mykola D. Katya inserted the chip into Ilya's player. They gathered around. At first, just breathing. Then a voice, cracked but alive. To Helena Ivanivna. You taught us to memorize poems in class. I hated it back then. Thought words couldn't matter in war. I was wrong. We repeated lines in the dark. Recited them under our breath so we wouldn't forget who we were. 27 of us, whispering Shevchenko while rats walked over our feet. You saved us twice. Once in school. And now, again. Thank you. I'll come home when this is done. Helena didn't cry. Not fully. Just sat very still, staring into her cup of tea as steam curled upward and disappeared. He remembered Kafka's, she whispered. That was 7th grade. Scene, the Wall of Names. Over the next week, Ilya and Katya helped paint a mural on the side of the post office. The artist, a one-armed veteran named Dima, had returned from Lyman and brought paint with him instead of bullets. At the top of the mural, bold and black, were the words, "Those who came back from the dark." Below were 27 names, written carefully by hand. One by one. Each letter a resurrection. Locals began to visit. A woman brought flowers. A child left a toy tank. An old man, missing a leg, whispered something in Polish and saluted. Ilya never asked what he said. Scene, the offer. 2 weeks later, a black SUV pulled up in front of the school ruins. A man in uniform stepped out, commander's bars on his shoulder, a scar over his brow. You're Ilya Moros? Yes, Ilya said cautiously. You're the kid who built a war-grade directional relay out of coat hangers, broken phones, and a church speaker? Ilya blinked. I guess so. The man nodded. We could use someone like you in Kharkiv. Signals unit. You'd be with professionals. Not just rooftops and ghosts. Ilya looked over his shoulder at Helena, who was watering her tomatoes in the broken flower bed. Then at Katya, who was reading a first aid manual in the sun. Maybe later, he said. Scene, full circle. One quiet night, Ilya returned to the rooftop. The wind had changed direction. Somewhere far off, thunder rolled, not from a storm, but distant fighting. He sat with the radio. Static greeted him like an old friend. Then, something new. A woman's voice. Ukrainian. Calm, certain. To all listeners, this is the free signal from Slavyansk. If you can hear this, you are not alone. We have light. We have bread. We have names. Come home when you can. Glory to Ukraine. Ilya smiled. He leaned forward, adjusted the dial just slightly. And answered. Copy. Kramatorsk is still listening.